Interesting. Okay. I meant to start it in about like 60 seconds, but here we go. Can you see me? Can you hear me? We're messing with some stuff today, and on top of that, I think YouTube might be having a moment. So we are reading this entire stream with fingers crossed. And I've had to do some different things with audio. So please, let me bring it closer. Yeah, please tell me, see me, hear me. If I will try to keep a closer eye on chat than I normally do as I'm reading, just in case anything happens. Because there's just some wonky stuff going on today. But for now, if I had been able to start the stream in a couple of minutes and not when I did the thing, I don't know why it automatically went, I would have Eddie, but I don't. So I am without water for this stream. It's been a chaotic past 45 minutes, let me tell you. But honestly, what is this live stream if it is not pure chaos at this point? Anyway, I am Britney. I am minus an Eddie, but I am still Britney, and welcome to Gaywatch. This is a book reaction stream for Volume 2 of Modao Zuche. I have seen The Untamed, but I have never read any version of the book. So the book is new, but I've seen the show. And it's a reading reaction. It's not any kind of audiobook experience. It's not any kind of professional or ASMR-ish type of thing. It's just reading and freaking out about what I'm reading as I'm reading it. And we are on, if it gets to where I'm just hacking up a lung, then I will run and go grab Eddie. I'm pretty sure I know where he is. That's the question, isn't it? I'm pretty sure it would be just a quick run. But for right now, I'm okay. But if I really need to, I will run and go get it. We are at page 244? 245. This is that lovely and riveting section of the live stream, because I never remember to do it. I never remember to actually find the specific place before I start the stream, because that would be efficient and, you know, require executive function, which I don't have. We were at the top of 244. There we go. Once the two were seated, we were at the top of 244, because the banquet's about to start. Ooh, and we are just shy of 100 pages of the last 100 pages. So actually, if I wanted to go a little bit long today, and a little bit long tomorrow, and a little bit long on Thursday, we might be able to finish it on Thursday? Maybe? We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Any type of, because now is when I give everybody just a couple of minutes to get the notification and get into the stream before we actually start. In terms of announcements, it was my birthday 2 days ago, and the Gaywatch Discord made me feel very loved when I told them that. I just got a ton of birthday messages, and I actually even got a good amount the day after, so I got a nice amount of belated birthday messages as well. And they were all like just super lovely and wonderful, and so many gifts. There are so many birthday related gifts that were fantastic. Let me see if the stream is doing anything weird to me, which it says it's doing something weird, but I'm getting no other weirdness anywhere. So we're going to close that, because I think it may have gotten a little bit paranoid. Yes, thank you for all the happy birthdays. I see them all. Yee, it was a good birthday too. I went to lunch and played a game with the wife, that I've been wanting her to see for a very long time, because it's an excellent game, but it's also an excellent game that the wife specifically would adore if she would just see it. But she's not much of a gamer, and she's a very specific type of gamer, and this kind of falls a little bit outside her purview. Oh, the game is Kena Bridge of Spirits. If you are at all gaming inclined, you have to play Kena Bridge of Spirits. It's even related to this channel because of all the stories that it goes through. One of them is sapphic. So there is actual gay in Kena Bridge of Spirits. It's also just one of the best games I've ever played. Just period. Let's see, outside of the birthday, I hit 6K today, or yesterday, sometime, I think, in the early morning of technically today. I've hit 6K. Didn't have time to celebrate for 4K, and 5K happened too soon to really get anything in place for that, and ditto 6K. It's a really nice problem to have, but now I'm starting to feel like an ungrateful YouTuber because I haven't had the time to really make and do anything special for these milestones that really do matter to me, and I haven't been able to show that yet. I'll figure something out when I have about 2 seconds to breathe. It would be nice. But we did hit 6K today, and it's pretty nuts. It's kind of fantastic. I'm also within reach of like 800 patrons on Patreon. I expect that number to be kind of soft because Kin Porsche is so popular, and I made it this way, so it's fine, and people can just kind of hop on the lowest tier for like a specific show and then hop off, which is totally fine. So, but even if that's a soft number, after everyone who was only there for Kin Porsche Bales, it'll still be like way higher than I thought I would ever reach. So we're growing. We're in our growth era. What time is it? Okay. So we're at the top of 244, and the banquet is about to begin. Did I have anything? Did we? No. No. Okay, we're in chapter 10, which is called The Beguiling Boy. And what's funny is that could reference a couple of different characters in this show. But I'm kind of low-key hoping that's a Meng Yao reference. Possibly. I feel like that would be apt, especially considering the points we're getting at in the present day story. Anyway, top of 244. I'm going to lower the mic and push it back just a little bit so I'm not whacking it with the book. And I'm going to click this away so I'm not seeing my face, but I'm still seeing stream information that is terribly important. Oh no, did Pretty Boy pass in the background? Dresden and Pretty Boy are just to my left over here, sitting on my nightstand that's in front of a window. But I'm sure he made an entrance. He pulls focus. He's pretty like that. Alrighty. Oh God, no. Wait, no. We have to have these. We have to have these pushed up because otherwise that's just weird. I don't know why. Okay. Once the two were seated, the banquet formally began. Seated directly below them was Jin Ling, his head held high and chest puffed out. When his eyes landed on Wei Wuxian, he glared vehemently at him. Wei Wuxian, used to being a spectacle. Yeah. Like, if he was getting a character introduction in like some cheesy 80s movie, he turns around and there's a freeze frame, and then you see his name on the screen, and then like little subtitle about him. That would be the descriptor. Wei Wuxian, used to being a spectacle. Wei Wuxian, used to being a spectacle, didn't appear the slightest bit flustered. Between the merry clinking of wine cups and conversation, he ate and drank as he should, and while he was at it, listened to the praises being sung all over Pageantry Hall. An excellent event, indeed. It was evening when the banquet finally ended. The symposium didn't formally begin until the next day, and the crowd made their way out of Pageantry Hall in groups of 2s and 3s as the sect disciples guided the clan leaders and distinguished cultivators to their guest houses. Lan Xichen, a moment for my husband, Lan Xichen still appeared weighed down by his thoughts, and Jin Guangyao seemed to want to ask him what was wrong. He approached him, but had only just managed to call out Urga when someone else came charging over with a heart-rending wail. Sangha! Jin Guangyao almost stumbled backward as he was tackled. Hastily taking hold of his cap to keep it upon his head, he asked, "What's wrong, Huaisang? If something's the matter, use your words." Such an undignified family head could only be the head shaker of the Nie clan of Qing'e. Even better, a drunk head shaker. Nie Huaisang's face was bright red, and he refused to let go of Jin Guangyao. "Oh, Sangha, what should I do? Can't you help me just this one last time? I promise. It'll be just this one last time." "Didn't I already arrange to have that last incident resolved?" Jin Guangyao asked. "The last incident got resolved, but now there's new problems," Nie Huaisang wailed. "Sangha, what should I do? I don't want to live anymore." Seeing how incoherent he was, Jin Guangyao could only say, "Asu, why don't you head back first? Huaisang, walk this way. Let's find a place to sit down and talk. Don't be so anxious." He helped Nie Huaisang out the door. Lan Xichen, who had also gone to see what was happening, was consequently seized along the way by the drunken disaster that was Nie Huaisang. Qin Su bowed courteously to Lan Wangji. "Heng Wenjun, it seems you have not attended symposiums at Lanling for many years. Please do forgive us should there be any inadequacies in our hospitality." Her voice was sweet and meek, truly a beauty who inspired the tenderest of affections. Lan Wangji nodded to return the courtesy. Qin Shu's eyes landed on Wei Wuxian. After a moment of hesitation, she said softly, "Then please excuse me," and left with her maids. Wei Wuxian was confused. "Everyone in the Golden Carp Tower looks at me so weirdly, huh? What exactly did Mo Xuanyu do? Confess his love buck naked? What's so special about that? The people of the Jin clan have seen too little of the world's vast oddities." Lan Wangji listened to him chatter away, postulating nonsense, and shook his head. "I'm gonna go find someone to wheedle info out of," Wei Wuxian continued. "Heng Wenjun, keep an eye on Zheng Cheng for me. If he doesn't come find me, great. If he does, help me stop him." "Do not go too far," was all Lan Wangji asked of him. "Sure," Wei Wuxian replied. "If I go too far, then we'll meet in the bedroom at night." That was no preparing for that one. Just clear out of nowhere. Just hit by a bus. His eyes searched Pageantry Hall inside and out, but he didn't see the one he wanted. "That's weird," he thought to himself. After leaving Lan Wangji's side, he searched the grounds. As he passed by a gazebo, someone suddenly emerged from one of the garden's rock formations. "Hey!" "Ha! Found you!" Wei Wuxian thought as he turned around. He whined softly and with deliberate petulance. "What do you mean, hey? So rude. Weren't we so chummy when we last parted? So heartless now that we've reunited. I'm heartbroken." Jin Ling sprouted goosebumps all over his body. "Shut up right now! Who's all chummy with you? Didn't I already warn you not to bother our families? Why are you back?" "Heaven be my witness, I've been following Heng Wenjun properly, not a toe out of line. I was this close to having him physically tie me to him." "Which of your eyes saw me bothering your family? Or bothering your uncle? Clearly, he's the one bothering me, okay?" Jin Ling flew into a rage. "Get out of here! That was my uncle being suspicious of you! Enough with your nonsense! Don't think I don't know you still haven't given up on." Just then, there was shouting from all around. 7 or 8 boys dressed in the Jin clan uniform suddenly leapt from the garden, and Jin Ling abruptly stopped. The boys slowly encircled them. The one leading them was around Jin Ling's age, but much beefier. And here I thought I was mistaken. It really is him. Wei Wuxian pointed at himself. "Me?" Who else? That boy spat. Mo Xuanyu, I can't believe you have the face to return. Jin Ling's brow creased. Jin Chen, what are you doing? You've no business here. Oh, I see. This is probably a kiddo from the same generation as Jin Ling, Wei Wuxian thought. And by the look of things, they don't get along. I've no business here? What do you have? What? Whew! Got a little too incensed. What, do you have business here? What do you care what I do? Several boys were already making a move while they spoke, looking like they were going to pin Wei Wuxian down. Jin Ling shifted and stood in front of Wei Wuxian. Stop messing around! What do you mean, messing around? So what if I want to teach our misbehaving sect disciple a little lesson? Jin Chen argued. Jin Ling humphed. Wake up! He's already been booted out the door. He's not our clan sect's disciple anymore. So what? Jin Chen demanded. That so what was uttered so confidently that Wei Wuxian was stunned. Jin Ling rebutted. So what? Did you forget who he came with today? If you plan on teaching him a lesson, why don't you go ask Lan Wangji for permission? That made me really happy. As soon as the name Lan Wangji was dropped, all the boys grew apprehensive. Even if Lan Wangji wasn't present, none of them were arrogant enough to proclaim, I'm not afraid of Lan Wangji. They held back for a moment, and then Jin Chen sneered. Jin Ling, didn't you used to hate him? Why the change of attitude today? Why do you talk so much? What's this got to do with you? Jin Ling said. That guy shamelessly harassed Lan Wangji, and yet you're taking his side? It was as if Wei Wuxian had been struck by lightning. He harassed who? Lan Wangji. Lan Wangji who? Jin Guangyao. He had never imagined that the one Mo Xuanyu harassed was Lan Wangji? Jin Guangyao? While he struggled to wrap his head around this, Jin Chen and Jin Ling exchanged heated words until they were raising fists to exchange instead. Neither of them could stand the other, so this was all it took to make them flare up. Jin Ling yelled, if you want to throw hands, let's go, like I'm scared of you. Another boy yelled, come on then, the only thing he knows how to do in a fight is call his dog to help. Oh! 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 I know he's like a nameless another boy, but ouch. Damn. Jin Ling was just about to whistle, but when he heard this, he forcibly bit down on his tongue. He roared, I can beat you all with my bare hands even if I don't call fairy. Despite the gusto with which he shouted that, he was outnumbered. It seemed his skill fell short of the mark too, for it wasn't long until he was forcibly beaten back to Wei Wuxian's side. Jin Ling was furious seeing him still hanging around. What are you still standing there for? Wei Wuxian suddenly grabbed one of his hands. Jin Ling didn't have time to yell before he felt an overpowering force on his wrist. He couldn't help but fall to his knees and topple over. He yelled in anger, You looking to die? Jin Chen and his little friends were all startled to a stop at the sight of Wei Wuxian bringing Jin Ling to the ground, considering Jin Ling had been shielding him. However, Wei Wuxian simply asked him, You get it? Jin Ling was also startled. What? Wei Wuxian twisted his wrist again. Have you learned? Jin Ling felt a wave of numbing pain coming from his wrist through his entire body. He yelled again, but that incredibly swift and incredibly minor action stuck in his mind. One more time, Wei Wuxian instructed again. Watch closely. Conveniently, another boy came rushing at them just then. With one hand behind his back, Wei Wuxian caught the boy's wrist with deadly accuracy. In the space of a breath, he'd laid that boy out on the ground. Jin Ling had seen everything clearly this time, and the vaguely throbbing place on his wrist told him which acupoint to force a burst of spiritual energy into. He leapt to his feet in high spirits. I got it! The tables turned in an instant. Before long, the garden resounded with boys yelling and shouting in frustration and anger. Finally, Jin Chen cried, Jin Ling, just you wait. The group of boys fled in defeat, cursing as they ran. Jin Ling laughed maniacally behind them. Once he seemed to be done, Wei Wuxian spoke up. Look at you so happy. First time winning. Bah! Jin Ling spat. I always win one-on-one fights, but that Jin Chan always comes along with a bunch of helpers. Utterly shameless. Wei Wuxian was just about to comment that he could find a bunch of people to come help him too. There were no rules saying these scuffles had to be one-on-one. Sometimes it really did come down to who had more hands at their disposal. But he stopped himself from voicing the thought. In the many times he'd seen Jin Ling go out, he'd done so alone, without any clan juniors of the same age. He probably had no helpers he could call upon in the first place. Hey, where did you learn that move? Jin Ling asked. Wei Wuxian dumped the blame directly in Lan Wangji's lap without a shred of guilt. Heng Wanjun taught me. Jin Ling didn't question this in the least. Since he had already seen Lan Wangji's forehead ribbon tied around Wei Wuxian's wrists, all he did was grumble. He taught you this kind of thing too? Why not? Wei Wuxian said, but this is just a little trick. It was effective because it was your first time using it and they'd never seen it before. If you use it too much, they'll figure it out and it won't be so easy next time. How about it? Want to learn a few more moves with me? Jin Ling gave him a look and said in spite of himself, why are you like this? My little uncle has always tried to advise me, but you're trying to incite me. I mean, that alone just speaks volumes about both Wei Wuxian and Zheng Cheng. Advise you? Wei Wuxian asked. Advise you to what? To not fight and get along with people? Pretty much, Jin Ling admitted. Don't listen to him, Wei Wuxian said. Let me tell you, once you're older, you'll discover that there are so many people out there you still want to beat up, but you'll have to force yourself to get along with them. So hit whoever you want to your heart's content, while you're still young. If you don't get into at least a few spectacular brawls, your life will be incomplete. Coming from fucking Wei Wuxian, everybody. Like, I cannot believe he has learned so much in so little. Oh God. There seemed to be some yearning on Jin Ling's face, but he still sounded disdainful. What nonsense are you spewing? My little uncle is always thinking of my best interests. Jin Ling suddenly recalled that Mo Xuanyu had regarded Jin Guangyao as a god in the past. He would never have claimed the man was wrong about anything, but now he just said, don't listen to him. Could he really have gotten over his presumptuous desire for Jin Guangyao? Oh, did I get that wrong? Little uncle. Would that be Jin Guangyao? Ah, see, yeah, right there in the chat. At least I caught it. Wei Wuxian could pretty much guess what Jin Ling was thinking by the look in his eyes. Seems like I can't deceive you any longer, he proclaimed directly. That's right, I've already moved on. What? Wei Wuxian continued, deeply emotional. In these intervening days, I've pondered deeply and seriously, and finally discovered that Lan Fengjun is not, in fact, my type. And he's not suitable for me either. Jin Ling backed a couple of steps away. In the past, I didn't know. I can get through this. In the past, I didn't know my own heart. But after meeting Heng Wanjun, I'm now certain. Wei Wuxian drew in a deep breath and continued. I cannot leave him anymore. I don't want anyone besides Heng Wanjun. Wait, where are you running off to? I'm not done. Jin Ling! This is dangerously close to fake dating. Now, if not, I mean, it's at least a Venn diagram with fake dating. Right? Right? Am I wrong? I don't think I'm wrong. Yeah, see, unknowingly speaking the truth. Because he's oblivious. So I feel like this falls under at least some kind of subclass of fake dating. Jesus Christ. We're at page 251, by the way, around the middle. Jin Ling had turned around and bolted. Wei Wuxian called after him a few times, but the boy didn't turn to look even once. Now he'll no longer suspect I still hold some sort of unspeakable flame for Jin Guangyao, he thought, feeling pleased with himself. Yeah, but do you know what Jin Ling is gonna do the second he gets within earshot of anybody? I'm assuming he heard at least the first part, right? This is gonna get browned. When he turned his head, however, the white robes that were like frost and that man who was like snow stood less than a dozen meters away. No. You're kidding. Beneath the moonlight, Lan Wangji gazed at him, still and tranquil. Wei Wuxian was struck speechless. In the days right after his resurrection, he would have said things 10 times as scandalous to Lan Wangji. Yet now, under that gaze, he shockingly and for the first time sprouted a subtle sense of shame, one he'd never experienced in 2 lifetimes. Wei Wuxian rapidly suppressed this rare emotion and walked over, completely at ease. Hang Wanjun, you're here! Did you know Mo Xuanyu was actually driven out of Golden Carp Tower because he was harassing Jin Guangyao? No wonder everyone was shooting me complicated looks. Okay, listen. Listen. I feel like that shame... I don't know. I'm gonna have to sit on that for a second. Somebody write down page 251. I don't have a pen in my reach. But somebody make a note at the bottom of 251. I've got to think on that sudden and striking presence of at least just a little bit of shame. I've got to ponder that. Lan Wangji didn't say anything. He turned around and walked with Wei Wuxian side by side. Wei Wuxian continued, You and Zewujun didn't know about this, and you didn't know Mo Xuanyu at all. It seems the Jin clan of Lan Ling was keeping the affair under wraps from beginning to end. It makes sense, the sect leader's blood flows in Mo Xuanyu after all. If Jin Guangshan didn't want this son of his, he would have brought him back. If all he was doing was harassing his peers, Mo Xuanyu should have been disciplined at most. It wouldn't have warranted expulsion. But if the one he harassed was Jin Guangyao, then that's different. This was not simply Lan Fangzhen. This was also Mo Xuanyu's brother from another mother. Truly, what a wholly unseemly affair. One that simply had to be cut at the roots. And Lan Fangzhen would never be the one cut out, of course, so Mo Xuanyu had to go. That last part was not dialogue. It just trailed into his thoughts. Wei Wuxian recalled how Jin Guangyao had looked as though nothing was the matter when they first came face to face at the square. The way he laughed and joked, like he didn't recognize Mo Xuanyu at all. That man really is quite something. It's even italicized. That man really is quite something. Jin Ling, however, couldn't hide how he felt. He particularly detested Mo Xuanyu, not just because he detested cut sleeves, but because the one Mo Xuanyu was harassing was his own little uncle. Having thought of Jin Ling, Wei Wuxian soundlessly heaved a sigh. What is the matter? Lan Wangji asked. Hang Wanjun, have you noticed that every time Jin Ling goes out to a night hunt, he's always on his own? Wei Wuxian asked. Don't tell me that Zhang Chen goes with him. His uncle doesn't count. He's in his teens, but I can't believe he doesn't have anyone his age attending him, any retinues escorting him. When we were younger... Lan Wangji's brow arched just slightly. On seeing this, Wei Wuxian changed his tune. Oh my god. Alright, fine, me, when I was younger. It wasn't like that for me when I was younger. Did Lan Wangji just, like, take offense to being referred to being implied that he was now older? Does he have a thing about age? Am I reading that correctly? Mm-hmm. There shouldn't be another ongoing live stream right now. By the way, I just happened to glance over at your question, D. There might be, though. YouTube has been dicking around with some things. If there is, it should be unlisted because I was trying to test some things out. Oh, great. Ah. More like, I was also alone. Speak for yourself, Anastasia. No, thank you. That makes sense. Lan Wangji replied impassively. That was you. Not everyone is as you were. But all children love excitement. They like crowds, you know, Wei Wuxian said. Hang Wenjun, what do you think? Could Jin Ling be particularly unsociable? Does he not have a single friend in the clan? I don't know about the Jiang clan of Young Meng, but I don't think any juniors in the Jin clan get along with him. They even had a fight earlier. Does Jin Guangyao not have a son or a daughter his age who's close to him? I love all children love excitement. They like crowds, you know? I'm like, man, tell me you're an extrovert without telling me you're an extrovert. Lan Wangji replied, Jin Guangyao once had a son. He was murdered at a young age. Wei Wuxian was amazed. That was the little young master of Golden Carp Tower? Who could have harmed him? It was due to the watchtowers, Lan Wangji explained. What do you mean? Wei Wuxian asked. As it turned out, back when Jin Guangyao was first constructing the watchtowers, he'd faced considerable opposition. He'd also offended some clans in the process. Among them was a clan leader who lost both an argument and his senses, leading him to kill the only son of Jin Guangyao and his wife, Qin Su. Their son was docile in character and dearly loved by his parents. In his grief and fury, Jin Guangyao uprooted that entire clan to avenge his son. But Qin Su was heartbroken, and ever since then, she had been unable to bear another child. Interesting. Several things. They were quiet for a moment. Then Wei Wuxian continued, the temper of Jin Ling's, the moment he opens his mouth, he offends people. Every action he takes kicks a hornet's nest. If it wasn't for you and I protecting him these past few occasions, how would he even be alive? Jiang Chen doesn't know how to raise kids at all. And as for Jin Guangyao, Wangji saying Jiang Cheng doesn't know how to raise kids at all takes on a particular meaning when you're aware of certain things. Remembering why they'd come to Golden Carp Tower, he felt his head throb and rubbed his temples. Lan Wangji had been watching quietly beside him. He offered no words of consolation, but he listened all the while and answered every question posed to him. Let's stop talking about this, Wei Wuxian decided. Let's go back to our room first. The two returned to the guest house that the Jin clan of Lan Ling had arranged for them. The room was exceptionally spacious and sumptuous, and even had a set of exquisite white porcelain wine cups. Wei Wuxian sat down and admired these. He fondled the set, playing around with them for a while. It wasn't until the middle of the night that he took action. He rummaged through the chests and drawers, found a stack of white paper and a pair of scissors, and then cut out a paper doll in no time. This paper effigy was only about the size of a grown man's finger. It had a round head and sleeves cut to be abnormally large, making them look like the wings of a butterfly. Wei Wuxian took a brush from the table and drew something before tossing the brush back down. He exchanged it for a cup of wine, took a large swig, then put his head back and lay down on the bed. The paper effigy suddenly jerked, then gave a couple of shakes. The two expansive wing-like sleeves flew up, bringing the light body with it, fluttering as it landed on Lan Wangji's shoulder. I love Paper Man. I don't know. I have a soft spot. I couldn't tell you why. Lan Wangji turned his head to the side to see his own shoulder, and the paper effigy pounced on his cheek at once, climbing the contours of his face until it reached the forehead ribbon. See? Paper Man. Paper Man is the best. It's like, it is another side to Wuxian. Something about it. Just something about it, man. It pulled and yanked at that ribbon as if too fond of it to let go. Paper Shan! Paper Shan! Is that what we call it? If it's not, we should. That is perfect, Paper Shan. Yes. Lan Wangji let the effigy twist around for a bit before reaching to pluck it off. At the sight of this, it hastily slid down with a crinkle. Whether intentionally or not, its head bumped against his lips. Whether intentionally or not. Whether intentionally or not. She's driving me nuts. She's driving me absolutely bonkers. Lan Wangji's movements faltered for a moment, but he finally caught the paper effigy between two fingers. Stop playing around. The effigy bonelessly rolled its body around his long, slender finger. Hello. Please take the utmost care, Lan Wangji said. The paper effigy nodded. It flapped its wings, then pressed flat to the ground to crawl under the door and furtively slip out of the guest house. Security at Golden Carp Tower was high, and a full-sized living person obviously couldn't come and go as they wished. Fortunately, Wei Wuxian had studied a particular kind of black magic known as the paper-cut incarnation. The spell was useful, yes, but also had quite a number of restrictions. Not only did it come with a strict time limit, but once the paper effigy was sent out, it had to return in the same state, without the slightest bit of damage. If it was ripped or damaged in any way, the soul of the caster would sustain the same degree of injury. The lightest consequence would be losing consciousness for a half or full year. Graver consequences might include a lifetime of stupor. As such, it called for the utmost caution. Well, Jesus, now I'm stressed. I mean, I guess it's good I've seen the show, so like, you know, I know, but like, still stressful. We can't even have, you know, adorable Paper Shin without this whole, like, by the way, and if he so much as stumbles, screwed. Lord. While possessing this paper effigy, Wei Wuxian was at times stuck to the bottom hems of a cultivator's robes, at times flattening himself to slip past door cracks, at times opening his sleeves and dancing in the night like a butterfly, pretending to be a piece of waste paper. Suddenly, still in midair, he heard the faint sound of weeping from below. He looked down to see one of Jin Guangyao's guest accommodation houses, Blooming Garden. Wei Wuxian flew under the eaves and saw 3 people sitting in the reception hall. Nie Huaisang had one hand clutching Lan Xichen while the other gripped Jin Guangyao, tearfully complaining about something while still in a drunken stupor. Behind the reception hall was a study. Since no one was in here, Wei Wuxian went in to take a look. The table inside was covered with drawings annotated in red, and upon the walls there hung 4 paintings of the 4 seasons. He wasn't going to examine those at first, but when his eyes swept past, he couldn't help but want to express his admiration for the artistry. The use of color was infinitely gentle, but the subject still came across as appropriately vast. It was clearly a singular landscape illustrated on paper, yet it seemed to span thousands of mountains and rivers. Wei Wuxian thought such skill with the brush could rival Lan Xichen's. He took a few more looks despite himself, and it was this that led him to discover that the artist of these 4 paintings was, in fact, Lan Xichen. My man paints? Sorry, hang on. My man fucking paints? He's a painter. He paints things? Did I know this? I don't think I knew this. I am okay. That affected me a normal amount. Flying out of Blooming Garden, Wei Wuxian saw a grand 5-ridged palace in the distance. The roof was laid with luminous golden glazed tiles, and outside it stood 32 golden pillars. A magnificent structure to behold. This had to be one of the most heavily guarded buildings within Golden Carp Tower, the place where all the family heads of the Jin clan of Lan Ling through the generations slept. Fragrance Palace. Aside from the cultivator guards dressed in sparks amid snow uniforms, Wei Wuxian could sense Fragrance Palace was densely covered with array magic from the ground all the way to the skies. He flew to a plinth carved with high reliefs of sparks amid snow to rest for a moment, then exerted some strength and squeezed through the crack of the door, crinkling all the way. Unlike Blooming Garden, Fragrance Palace was the quintessential golden carp tower structure, a majestic, sumptuous edifice with engraved beams and sculpted columns. Inside the sleeping palace were layers upon layers of gauze curtains draping to the floor. An incense burner carved in the shape of an auspicious beast sat atop the incense table, softly diffusing orchid-scented smoke. Amidst the extravagance was a lazy, overly sweet sense of decadence. Jin Guangyao was meeting Lan Xichen and Nie Huaisang in Blooming Garden. There was no one inside Fragrance Palace, which just so happened to make it easier for Wei Wuxian to investigate. The paper effigy flew hither and thither, searching for anything suspicious. Suddenly, he spotted a letter underneath the agate paperweight on the table. This letter had already been opened. There was no name on the envelope, nor was there any seal stamp. Judging by the thickness, though, it was clearly not empty. Wei Wuxian fluttered his sleeves and landed by the table, curious to see exactly what was inside. However, when his hands caught the edges of the letter and tried to pull it outward, for all his struggles, it didn't move at all. His current body was a flimsy piece of paper. There was no way he could move this hefty agate paperweight. Paperman Wei. Oh my god, it calls him Paperman Wei. I mean, Papershan is still the best, but Paperman Wei is all kinds of adorable. Paperman Wei circled the agate paperweight a number of times, pushing and kicking, hopping and jumping, but unfortunately it remained immovable. He had no choice but to leave it be and see if he could find any other areas of suspicion. Just then, a side door to the sleeping palace was pushed open a crack. Wei Wuxian swooped down and pressed himself against the table leg, staying still. The one who had entered was Qin Su. Yeah, I figured that's where we were. I mean, it's very show, actually. The sequence itself is very much the show. How did pages get bent? Anyway. It seemed it wasn't that Fragrance Palace was absent of people, but rather that Qin Su had been silently present within an inner chamber. We're at the top of page 258, by the way. Okay, coming up on a break. It was perfectly normal for the mistress of Golden Carp Tower to appear inside Fragrance Palace. However, it was her current appearance that was extremely abnormal. Her face was blanched of all blood, and she wobbled like she had suffered a heavy blow and had only just woken from unconsciousness, ready to faint again at any time. What's going on? She looked fine earlier at the banquet hall, Wei Wuxian thought. Qin Su was leaning against the door, lost in thought. It was a while before she slowly moved toward the table, supporting herself against the wall. She stared at the letter under the agate paperweight and reached out, seeming to want to pick it up, but in the end withdrawing. Under the lamplight, he could see her lips were quivering uncontrollably. What had once been a dignified, beautiful face was now practically contorted. Suddenly, she screamed. She grabbed that letter and hurled it to the ground, her other hand clutching the fabric at her chest, shivering. Wei Wuxian lit up on seeing the letter, but suppressed the urge to immediately fly over. He could handle only Qin Su discovering him, but if she screamed and called over others, his soul would be affected by any damage this paper took. All of a sudden, a voice sounded inside the sleeping palace. "Asu, what are you doing?" Qin Su whipped her head around and saw a familiar figure standing just a few steps behind. The familiar face was smiling at her, as it always did. She immediately threw herself to the ground and grabbed the letter. Wei Wuxian could only stay firmly pressed against the table leg and watch helplessly as the letter escaped his line of sight. Jin Guangyao seemed to have taken another step closer. "What's that in your hand?" His voice was gentle and genial, like he hadn't noticed anything amiss, hadn't noticed the odd letter in Qin Su's hands or her contorted face, but was simply inquiring about something trivial, like bidding her to put on a warmer robe or have a second helping of a dish. Qin Su clutched the letter and didn't respond. Jin Guangyao tried again. "You don't look well. What's wrong?" His voice was full of concern. Qin Su raised the letter, her voice shuddering as she spoke. I met with someone. Who? Jin Guangyao asked. It was as though Qin Su hadn't heard him, and she continued, that person told me some things and gave me this letter. Jin Guangyao laughed in spite of himself. Just who is it that you saw? And who would... Ooh, and would you believe anything they tell you? Wouldn't lie to me, Qin Su insisted. Absolutely not. Who? Wei Wuxian wondered. He didn't quite catch the pronoun, so he couldn't tell whether it was a man or a woman. Is everything written here true? Qin Su demanded. Su, if you don't show me the letter, how can I know what's written in it? Jin Guangyao reasoned. Fine then, take a look. Qin Su displayed the letter clutched in her hands. Jin Guangyao took another step forward to read it. His eyes flew past the lines and finished skimming it in a flash. There was no change in his expression, not even the shadow of a frown. Qin Su, however, was practically shrieking. Say something, speak, tell me that it's not true, that it's nothing but lies. It's not true, Jin Guangyao assured her with conviction. It's nothing but lies. Absurd. False charges. Qin Su burst into tears. You're lying. You're still trying to lie to me even now. I don't believe you. Jin Guangyao sighed. Su, you're the one who told me to say these words, but when I say them, you refuse to believe me. That makes it really difficult for me. What about that? What about that line screams infuriating entitled white guy? Like, I realize obviously these are Chinese characters, but something about that particular, that makes it really difficult for me. Like, that's even, like, you're even, where on earth, I can hear that coming out of some, you know, douchebag, pseudo-sensitive, you know, indie film and music hipster douchebag boyfriend. I may have said douchebag twice. Who prizes for his sensitivity. Prizes himself on his sensitivity and shit. Why does that, see? Thank you. Yes. Qin Su threw the letter at him, then covered her face. My God, you really are terrifying. How could you? How could you? She couldn't continue any further. Still holding her face in her hands, she retreated to the side. Then, holding herself up with a hand placed against a column, she suddenly began to heave. She retched so heartrendingly she seemed she might throw up her insides. There's a visual. Wei Wuxian was shocked by the violence of her reaction. She was probably vomiting in the inner chamber earlier too. What in the world is in that letter? Tales of Jin Guangyao killing and dismembering people? Fucking hang on. Is that has to be. That has to be a reference, right? It's gotta be. Like, you can't, that's too, I hate her. I hate her so fucking much. MXTX. No. But Jin Guangyao killed countless people during the Sunshot campaign. Everyone knows that, and there's no less blood on Qin Su's own father's hands. Could this be about Mo Xuanyu? No, it's impossible that Jin Guangyao and Mo Xuanyu had anything going on. In fact, Jin Guangyao was probably the one who had Mo Xuanyu thrown out of Golden Carp Tower. No matter what that letter says, her reaction shouldn't be so extreme as to make her vomit in disgust. That's, like, kind of delightfully innocent of you, Wuxian. Although he wasn't well acquainted with Qin Su, they had met a few times before, both being descendants of prominent clans. Qin Su was Qin Kengi's, I'm sure that was a version of pronunciation. May not have been the right one. Beloved daughter. She was a naive and innocent woman, but she'd been raised in privilege and had an excellent upbringing. She had never exhibited such heart-rending madness before. Nothing about this felt normal. Listening to her heave, Jin Guangyao silently crouched down and collected the papers that had scattered to the floor. He then casually raised them to a 9-layered lamp in the shape of a lotus and set them alight, letting them burn. I mean, granted, that's not like the best look in terms of believing that Jin Guangyao is just like innocent, but hello, a 9-layered lamp in the shape of a lotus? Can I get that? Can I own that, please? That sounds stupid gorgeous. 9 layers in the shape of a lotus. Like, I would like to purchase this, please. Watching ashes drop bit by bit to the ground, he spoke, sounding saddened. Ah, Su, you and I have been husband and wife for many years. We have always had a harmonious and respectful relationship. I know I've treated you very well as a husband, so your behavior right now genuinely hurts me. God, we're back to the douche bro indie music guy again. Oh, God, Alexa, play Mad Woman by Taylor Swift. Jesus. That's just so, like, especially if you've seen The Untamed or read this book before and you, like, know what's in the letter. It's like, that's so not genuinely hurts you. What kind of, like, my brain locks up at that whole, just the Anyway. It's like, what do you mean that hurts me? It's like, you're the one who's doing things to... Anyway. Qin Su had nothing left within her stomach to expel. She crouched on the ground on all fours, sobbing. It's true, you've treated me well, but I'd rather I'd never known you. No wonder that ever since there was never... Rather than do that, you should have just killed me. Asu, weren't we doing just fine before you learned about this? Oh my God, I'll take gaslighting for 500, Alex, Jin Guangyao reasoned. Today, the day you found out, is the only day you felt such nausea, and it's only because the knowledge troubles you. Which just goes to show that it doesn't really matter. It didn't substantially affect you in any other way. It's just your own mind, causing you grief. Okay. Qin Su shook her head, her face ashen. Tell me the truth. Ah Song. How did Ah Song die? Who's Ah Song? That would be Wei Wuxian wondering to himself. Jin Guangyao was taken aback. Ah Song, why are you asking me this? Don't you know already? Ah Song was murdered, and I've long since disposed of his murderer to avenge him. Why are you suddenly bringing him up now? I did know, Qin Su stated, but now I'm beginning to wonder whether everything I know is false. This poor woman, by the way, like, a lot of characters get put through a lot of shit. So it's easy to, like, forget some people. But this poor woman, can you imagine being married to Jin Guangyao and then she did, like, nothing. She existed, as far as I remember. That's all she did. Jin Guangyao seemed tired. Asu, what are you thinking? Ah Sung was my son. What do you think I would do? You would rather trust someone who hides their head and tail, a letter of unknown origins, than me? Qin Su was crumbling. She pulled at her own hair and screamed, "It's precisely because he was your son that it terrifies me. What do I think you would do? If you can do even that, what wouldn't you do? And you still want me to trust you? God!" No one likes a mad woman. You made her like that. Okay, it's fine. Stop letting your mind... It's really not fine. I'm really gonna have to listen to Mad Woman by Taylor Swift after this. Stop letting your mind run wild, Jin Guangyao pleaded. Tell me, who did you see today? And who gave you this letter? Qin Su pulled at her hair again. What are you going to do? If that person can tell you, they can tell others. If they can write one letter, they can write a second, a third. What are you going to do? Let this be exposed? Asu, I'm begging you, no matter the circumstances, no matter the reasons, just tell me where the author of that letter is. Who told you to come back here and read that letter? Who is it? Wei Wuxian also really wanted to hear Qin Su say the name. Someone who could approach the cultivation chief's madam. Someone she'd trust. Someone who had uncovered some unspeakable secret of Jin Guanyao's. Whatever was in the letter definitely wasn't any simple crime of murder or arson. It had disgusted or horrified Qin Su to the point of vomiting. Even though only the two of them were present, she still couldn't bring herself to speak it aloud. Their discussion was vague and disjointed, without a single clear word passing between them. But if Qin Su really did give up the name of the letter's sender, then she would be foolish indeed. If she gave up the name, not only would Jin Guangyao dispose of that person, but he would seal Qin Su's own mouth at all costs. Thankfully, while Qin Su had been naive and ignorant of the world since she was a child, and even a little foolish at times, she no longer trusted Jin Guangyao. He sat poised and upright by the table, and she stared at him with empty eyes. The chief cultivator who stood above millions, her husband. He was still calm and collected in the candlelight, his face like a portrait. He rose to his feet, moving to help her up, but Qin Su violently slapped his hand away and then fell back to the floor, helplessly overtaken by another violent bout of dry heaving. Jin Guangyao's brows twitched. Am I really that disgusting? You're not a man. You're a madman, Qin Su cried. Jin Guangyao's eyes were filled with grief-stricken tenderness. Asu, I really had no other choice. I wanted to lie to you for the rest of your life, to keep you in the dark, but that hope has been thoroughly dashed by the one who told you this today. You think me filthy, you think me disgusting, that's fine. But if this gets out, you are my wife. What would others say? What would they think of you? I'm about to start dry heaving at this point. That threw me so hard, I lost my place. There we are. Qin Su clutched her head. Stop talking. Don't say anymore. Stop reminding me. I wish I never knew you. I wish I had nothing to do with you. Why did you draw so close to me back then? After some silence, Jin Guangyao replied, I know you won't believe anything I say now, but back then, my heart was true. Qin Su sobbed. You're still trying to sweet talk me. What I said is the truth, Jin Guangyao stated. I will always remember that you never said a single bad word about my background or my mother. Oh, actually, that some fucking genuineness may have slipped through now that we're, yeah. I've, again, so thrown that I lost my, yeah, okay. I am thankful for you and will be for my whole life. I wanted to respect you, cherish you, and love you, but you have to know, even if no one murdered Ah Song, he still had to die. His only path was death. If we had allowed him to grow up, you and I... With the subject of her son being raised, Qin Su could no longer endure this. Okay, hang on, though. This speaks this speaks to Yao's psyche in a very specific way that I don't think they touched on in the show, in terms of like why he would ignore this thing to go ahead and marry her anyway. And I believe it's pretty clearly illustrated, granted not something you would pick up on a first reading, but pretty clearly illustrated that it was like he was so unbelievably desperate for someone to treat him, his background, and his mother kindly, that he could hand wave what we're about to learn. And given, if you know everything, given everything we know about Meng Yao, that tracks with his other behavior. That type of, that fits in a big way. So yeah. And see, he could have chosen any other lady, but most people, almost everybody, treats him like absolute shit. So he saw kindness, and knowing the full truth didn't matter to him, because his psychological state is very, very broken in a very specific way. And I absolutely believe that he would do that he would ignore something like that just because that this makes sense to me. She raised her hand to deal him a resounding slap. Then who caused all this? What would you not do for the sake of your position? Jin Guangyao didn't dodge and accepted the slap, a bright red handprint surfacing on his fair cheek. He closed his eyes. A moment later, he said, "Ah Su, you really won't tell me?" Qin Su shook her head. Tell you so you can go kill them and seal their mouth? What are you saying? It looks like your sudden illness has muddled your head, Jin Guangyao said. Wow, getting into the real gaslighting now. Father-in-law has departed for an, I'm pretty sure it's ascetic, for an ascetic cultivation retreat. I will send you to join him for a while so you can recover while enjoying your family's company. I could make a joke, but let us finish this quickly. There are still many guests here, not to mention a symposium tomorrow. Even now, the guests and tomorrow's symposium were still on his mind. Yeah, I believe that's the unfortunate place that Qin Su got caught. Between his desperate need and blindness towards people, towards the rare people who are genuinely nice to him, and his unbelievable ambition and need to attain and maintain his position. You know who else fucking lands in that crossfire? Oh. My husband also lands in that fucking... I cannot believe. I'm having a whole ass moment right now. It's 4:04. We're gonna go ahead and take a break. I need to absorb that one. That one put me out. I realized we're still in the middle of a scene. But no. I need to, we gotta, yeah. And it's true. No book spoilers, please. There's still spoilery territory because I have seen The Untamed, and so I know most of, everything about the story, and I don't know what's been changed though. Yeah. There's spoilers, but there's not spoilers. it's kind of a weird place to be in. My apologies. But okay, we're gonna take a break after that realization. We're at page 264. I'm going to go ahead and use this very short break to escape for a second and go find Eddie and put some water in him because I am now officially thirsty. So one quick second, you get to look at my lovely Jinx chair while I escape to get Eddie, who I really should have had when I started the thing. I said it before, but I will say it again. Hang on. We are on page 264. Somewhere in the middle of this paragraph is when I lost my shit. Basically, towards the top, I'll recap this when we start up again. Towards the top, what are you saying is the line we're on. 264. Okay. Stare at the chair for hopefully no longer than 30 seconds while I go get water. Yeah. Okay. I couldn't find Eddie immediately, so it's Lan Xichen, actually, for today. Oh, I have nothing soft to set him on so you don't hear it every time I set down the mug. 1 second. Okay, that's good enough. How we feeling? How we doing? I'm still processing, frankly, that whole parallel between Qin Su and Xichen. Wow. I hear that it's not as pronounced in the book, possibly. But I'm really wondering how you don't lean into that, because that's a genius little bit of, but that might be just me. Anyway. Whew. Yeah, Elena, I imagine that most of them would be romance. Most of the book spoilers are romance related, since, you know, that was probably, no, definitely the biggest aspect that was censored from book to show, because China. Let's see, we'll just sit here for another minute. It's also kind of an intense scene as well, especially when you have like no idea what's going on. I remember this scene in the show. It was really good. Like, whenever, aside from structure differences, when there is a scene from the book in the show, and there's a bunch, there's a ton, they are pretty overwhelmingly faithful. I feel like they're way more faithful than most people would even bother being, especially in America, actually. Maybe that's just an American creative thing, where you know, you're adapting something, and so you don't really so you feel like you don't really have to pay attention to the source material all that much. Yeah. I once saw the most horrifying writing advice about adaptations that I haven't forgotten it to this day, and I swear I saw it like 10 years ago or some shit. Somebody actually, this was a legitimate thing that they put together about how to adapt something into a novel form. Because, you know, that happens with movies a lot, actually. Novelizations are released, but those are slightly different, as those are supposed to adhere to everything that happens in the movie. But this was for adaptations. And the guy was actually like, okay, so you take the 10 most important, you know, scenes, 10 biggest scenes throughout the thing, whatever you're adapting. You take the 10 most important scenes and you keep those, and then you do whatever you want. Like, the idea kind of being that as long as you had those 10 core scenes, it will therefore, like, check the box on being a faithful adaptation. That's the only thing I've been able to think of. Because, like, just that general approach is horrifying. And I was like, if anybody at the professional level takes this advice, that explains a whole lot of adaptations in America and why they're not great. You know what's funny? They did have 50 episodes to put the story all in there, to get it all in there, which is great. But they also still needed more. I mean, maybe if I wanted to, like, you could go in and rearrange and try to create more room for, like, the Yi City arc, which probably deserved at least another 2 episodes. At the very least 1, but really, like, another 2 whole episodes. But they still needed a little bit more time. I feel like maybe like 55 off the top of my head. Granted, obviously, I haven't finished the book yet, so that's just a very loose presumption. But, yeah, see, what kind of writing advice is that? I know, you take the 10 core scenes and then you can, like, do whatever because you're functioning off of the 10. It made me so mad as both a writer and a fan of things, and I love a good adaptation in any direction, book to movie, movie to book, graphic novel to book or movie, whatever. I love a good adaptation, and that was almost the exact wrong thing to say. I think the only thing worse would have been, just as long as you have kind of like the essence or the vibes of the original, then you can kind of do whatever you want. It's whatever, it's an adaptation. Like, that is like the worst advice. That 10 scene thing is pretty close to that, though. You know what's funny? I read, Rose is talking about this YA book called Blood and Chocolate. Werewolf thing, not a vampire thing. There was a book by the same author that was a vampire thing. I can't remember the name of it, but I really liked that one. I read Blood and Chocolate as well, though, because I really liked the author. And I remember when I started seeing hype for, like, the movie adaptation, and I was like, what is this? Why? What is this? Just adaptations in general in America have a whole thing. I should probably listen to the soundtracks again after I finish the book. I mean, I should probably listen to the soundtracks again anyway. I mean, it's unbelievably good. Did Inala confirm this for me, please? Was the whole, the Untamed was originally going to have Wei Ying hook up with Wenqing? Was that an actual thing that we got confirmed? Or did a vaguely close-looking, like, promo still get released, and then everyone jumped to conclusions, and the show had to come out and be like, no, we're not doing that? Because it could go either way, I feel. Yeah, see, I thought it was... Okay, there was also some actual leaked footage that implied it. Okay. Well, yeah, now, I mean, color me is disappointed, not surprised, about people therefore attacking Wenqing's actress for something that could not possibly be any further out of her control. That's not surprising. That is sad, and that is infuriating, but not surprising at all. Okay, we've actually wound up taking a longer break than I intended, but I needed a breather. All right. Okay. Once again, we're towards the top of 264. Let me get, because I keep wanting to mess with it, I'm going to put the bookmark way over there. Whew. Okay. What are you saying? It looks like your sudden illness has muddled your head, Jin Guangyao said. Father-in-law has departed for an ascetic cultivation retreat. I will send you to join him for a while so you can recover while enjoying your family's company. But let us finish this quickly. There are still many guests here, not to mention a symposium tomorrow. Even now, the guests and tomorrow's symposium were still on his mind. Though his lips said he would send Qin Su away for rest and recuperation, his hands were ignoring her pushes and blows and refusal as he helped her to her feet. He did something, and Qin instantly fell limp. He then calmly and unhurriedly half-carried, half-hauled his wife behind the layers of gauze curtains. Paperman Wei tiptoed out from underneath the table and followed them. He saw Jin Guangyao place his palm on a giant bronze floor mirror. A moment later, his fingers actually plunged into the surface of the mirror like it was water. Qin Su's eyes widened. Still in tears, she watched helplessly, unable to speak or shout, as her husband dragged her into the mirror. Wei Wuxian knew only Jin Guangyao himself could open this mirror. Never one to let an opportunity slip by, he roughly calculated the timing and darted in after them. Behind the bronze mirror was a secret chamber. Once Jin Guangyao entered, the lamps on the wall lit automatically, faintly illuminating the many latticed shelves stacked with treasures. Upon the shelves were stacks of books, scrolls, gems, weapons, and even several torture devices. Black iron rings, sharp barbs, silver hooks of peculiar make. The sight alone was morbid. Wei Wuxian knew these were mostly designed by Jin Guangyao. The leader of the Wen clan of Qishen, Wen Rohan, was unpredictable in temper and bloodthirsty to boot. He liked to torture people for pleasure, and Jin Guangyao had once catered to this interest of his by crafting all manner of cruel and interesting torture devices. It was how he'd managed to earn Wen Rohan's favor, gradually climbing higher until he became a trusted aide. Any cultivation clan had 2 or 3 secret treasure rooms. It wasn't unusual for Fragrance Palace, wow, to have such a chamber. Aside from a desk, the room also had a long, cold, black iron table large enough for a person to lie upon. There were residual dried black blotches on its surface. That table would be perfect for butchering someone, Wei Wuxian thought. Jin Guangyao gently helped Qin Su to this table and laid her down. Qin Su's face was drained of life. Jin Guangyao combed back her slightly mussed hair. "Don't be scared," he coaxed. "You shouldn't be running about in such a state. The crowds will only grow over the next few days, so rest here for now. You can join us as soon as you tell me who that person is. Nod your head if you're willing to speak with your husband. I didn't seal every meridian in your body, so you can still nod." Qin Su's eyes rolled toward her still gentle and considerate husband. Those eyes were filled with terror, pain, and despair. Just then, Wei Wuxian suddenly noticed a lattice shelf that was blocked off by a drape. The drape, which had blood-red, savage-looking spells drawn upon it, completely covered the shelf. It was an incredibly powerful, domineering array meant to seal something. The paper effigy clung to the foot of the wall and slowly climbed at an agonizing pace, a centimeter at a time. At the other end of the room, Jin Guangyao was still gently pleading with Qin Su. Abruptly, like he had sensed something, he whirled his head back in alarm. There was no one but him and Qin Su inside this secret chamber. He rose to his feet and carefully scrutinized his surroundings, only returning when he saw nothing out of place. Of course, he couldn't have known that when he turned his head, Wei Wuxian had just reached a shelf holding books. The moment he detected movement from Jin Guangyao, he swiftly squeezed his thin body between the pages of a book and lay flat against them like a bookmark, his eyes firmly pressed to the paper. Thankfully, Jin Guangyao was abnormally vigilant, but not enough so that he'd flip through books to see if there was anyone hiding inside. "Is there a paper sham bookmark?" Asking for a friend. All of a sudden, Wei Wuxian thought the words he was looking at seemed quite familiar. He stared hard for a long while, then cursed under his breath. How could it not be familiar? It was his own writing. Jiang Fengmian's comments on his writing were frivolously scribbled, but with a certain elegance of character. MXTX has just got to stop effortlessly summarizing Wei Wuxian as a whole-ass character. I do have a paper shan keychain, Jessica. Thank you for pointing that out. It was given to me by someone delightful. Actually, it's right here. Right next to Jack Skellington. Yeah. He's here. I have him. He's lovely. Ooh, he's backwards. There we go. I have no idea what that did to y'all's ears. This was most definitely his writing. Wei Wuxian examined it further and discerned a few bits and pieces between all the damaged and smeared spots. Different from possession, revenge, forced contract. He could finally be certain. This book he had squeezed himself into was one of his own manuscripts, an essay on the forbidden magic of possession. He'd scouted everywhere for sources and organized his findings into a dissertation, along with his own added extrapolations. He had written plenty of these manuscripts back then, all penned on a whim and tossed aside just as easily. Penned on a whim, yet he'd scouted everywhere for sources and organized his findings into a dissertation along with his own added extrapolations, but he did it all on a whim and was just like, after this man. All penned on a whim and tossed aside just as easily, scattered all around the cave where he slept in the Yiling burial mounds. Some of these manuscripts had been destroyed in the fires during the siege, while others were treated like his sword had been, taken as spoils of victory and hidden away. He'd wondered where Mo Xuanyu had learned such forbidden magic. Now he knew! Never in a million years would Jin Guangyao have allowed unimportant people to glimpse the remains of a manuscript on forbidden magic. It seemed that even if Jin Guangyao and Mo Xuanyu weren't in that kind of a relationship, what they shared was definitely not too different. As he was thinking this, Jin Guangyao's voice came. Asu, my time is up. I have to go host the event now. I'll come and see you after. Wei Wuxian had already twisted himself bit by bit out of the stack of his own manuscripts. At the sound of Jin Guangyao's voice, he rapidly stuffed himself back. This time, what he saw wasn't a manuscript, but a property deed and a land deed? He thought this mightily strange. What was so special about property and land deeds that they should be shelved next to the Yiling Patriarch's manuscripts? Yet no matter how he looked, they were indeed two entirely ordinary deeds, written up correctly with no ciphers or codes. The sheets were yellowing on the edges and even ink-stained. He still didn't believe Jin Guangyao had casually placed them here, so he memorized the address, which was located in Yangping city of Yangmeng. If he had a chance to visit it in the future, maybe he'd unearth something there. Only after there had been no sounds outside for a while did Wei Wuxian continue to crawl upward, still clinging to the wall. He finally made it to the lattice that was sealed behind the drape, but before he could see what exactly was behind it, light suddenly poured in. Jin Guangyao had come over and lifted the drapes. In that instant, Wei Wuxian thought he had been discovered. However, once the faint firelight permeated through the drapes, he discovered he was shrouded in a shadow. There was something round in front of him that just so happened to block him from view. Jin Guangyao stood there, rooted in place, and seemed to be staring at something placed in this lattice. It was a good moment before he asked, "Was it you watching me earlier?" Of course, there was no response. After a moment of silence, Jin Guangyao lowered the drapes. Wei Wuxian soundlessly clung to the object, which was cold and hard like a helmet. When he circled to the front, he saw a ghastly pale face, just as he'd expected. The one who placed the seal on this head wanted it to be unseeing, unhearing, and unspeaking. Thus, the skin of the pale, ghastly face was scrawled densely with spells, firmly sealing the eyes, ears, and mouth. "I've heard much about you, Qifengjun," Wei Wuxian greeted solemnly in his head. As expected, the last of Nie Mingjue's body parts, the head, was here with Jin Guangyao. Nie Mingjue, the fiery-tempered Qifengjun, who seemed so invincible in the Sunshot campaign of years past, was now heavily sealed up in this dark, gloomy, and cramped secret chamber, never to see the light of day. Wei Wuxian had only to unravel the seal, and the rest of Qifengjun's corpse would sense it and come seeking it on its own. He scrutinized the seal on the helmet for a moment, just as he was thinking about how to go about removing it, and an unusually strong force sucked him forward, powerfully yanking his light paper body against Nie Mingjue's forehead. This breaks into part 2 of chapter 10. We are at the very top of page 269. At the other end of Golden Carp Tower, Lan Wangji gazed at Wei Wuxian as he sat beside him. He watched for a while, then his fingers twitched, and with lowered lashes, he raised a hand to lightly touch his own lips. Meanwhile, back at the gay ranch, very, very lightly, just like the paper effigy had bumped into them earlier. All of a sudden, both of Wei Wuxian's hands clenched into tight fists. Sorry, they've got me. They'd just be coming out of nowhere with it today. Lan Wangji's attention focused. He took him into his arms and lifted his face. Wei Wuxian's eyes were still closed, but deep creases were starting to form between his brows. In the secret chamber, Wei Wuxian had no time to react at all. Those who died filled with intense resentment ceaselessly radiated that resentment and hatred from their corpses, infecting others with negative energy to appease their rage. The phenomenon was the cause of many hauntings. In fact, it was also the principle on which the technique of empathy worked. The physical body was a line of defense for the soul. If Wei Wuxian had been in his physical body right now, the resentful energy could not have infected him against his will. But given that he was presently possessing a flimsy piece of paper, his defenses were greatly and unavoidably diminished. Furthermore, he was too close to Nie Mingjue, and the force of the man's resentment was too powerful to resist. In a brief moment of carelessness, it had affected him. The thought, "oh no," had barely registered in his mind when, the next second, he caught the scent of blood. It had been many years since he'd last been surrounded by such a thick stench of it. Something in his bones awakened, clamored, started boiling. As soon as he opened his eyes, there was the flash of a blade, a splash of blood, a head flying through the air, and the sight of its fallen body toppling over. Emblazoned on the back of the beheaded man's family uniform was a blazing sun. Wei Wuxian watched himself sheath his blade as a deep voice came from his mouth. "Collect the head and hang it where the wen dogs can see." Someone behind him answered, "Yes, sir." Wei Wuxian knew who the beheaded man was now. It was Wen Shu, the eldest son of Wen Rohan, the head of the Wen clan of Qishan. He'd been ambushed and killed by Nie Mingjue at Hejian. Severed by one slash of Nie Mingjue's saber, Wen Shu's head was put on display before the Wen clan cultivators' formation as a show of might. His body, on the other hand, was cut to pieces and crushed into mangled meat. Ugh. This bloody paste was then used by enraged Nie clan cultivators to paint the ground of the battlefield red. Shit! Nie Mingjue swept the barest glance over the corpse on the ground and kicked it away. With his hand pressing down on the hilt of his blade, he slowly surveyed his surroundings. Qi Fengjun was a very tall man. When Wei Wuxian had a session of empathy with Ah Ching, his field of vision was quite low. Now it was much higher than his usual line of sight. A scan of the area revealed countless casualties. Some wore the blazing sun Wen clan robes, while others had the beast head family insignia of the Nie clan of Qingye on their backs. There were also some without a family emblem at all. Each of these accounted for around 30% of the bloody total. It was a tragic scene to behold, the stench of blood reeking to the high heavens. He swept his eyes across the area, then strode forward as if to check if there were any cultivators of the Wen clan still breathing. Suddenly, a strange clang rang out from a nearby tile-roofed house. Nie Mingjue brandished his saber, and the ensuing wind from his blade swiftly swept over to cleave open the house's simple door, exposing the terrified mother and daughter hiding inside. The house was dilapidated and bare. With nowhere else to hide themselves, the mother and daughter huddled under the table in each other's arms, not daring to breathe too hard. The young mother's round, wide eyes reflected Nie Mingjue's blood-soaked, murderous appearance, and her tears began to flow. The girl in her arms froze in fear, her mouth agape. Nie Mingjue's tightly furrowed brows relaxed on seeing they were ordinary people, like commoners who had not fled in time when the battle broke out. A subordinate came up behind him. Not knowing what was going on, he addressed him. "Sect leader." All the mother and daughter knew was that a bunch of cultivator factions had swarmed in out of nowhere and started killing each other, all while they were just trying to live their ordinary lives. They didn't know who the good guys were or who were the villains. The sight of sabers and swords alone was enough to terrify them into assuming they were surely going to die. They looked more and more terror-stricken with each passing moment. Nie Mingjue cast a glance at them and reined in his murderous aura. "Everything's all right," he answered. He lowered the hand that grasped his blade and strode to the side of the battlefield with steady steps. The young married woman instantly slumped to the ground with her daughter in her arms. After a moment, she could not help but weep in a small, desperate voice. After walking a few steps, Nie Mingjue suddenly halted in his tracks to ask something of the subordinate behind him. The rear personnel who was last to leave during the previous battlefield cleanup. Who was he? That subordinate gave a slight start and then answered, "The one who was last to leave? I don't really remember." "Tell me when you do," Nie Mingjue said with a frown. He continued on his way while that particular subordinate hurried to ask the others milling around. Not long later, he caught up to Nie Mingjue. "Sect leader, I've asked around, and the rear personnel who was the last to leave during cleanup on the previous battlefield is known as Meng Yao." Nie Mingjue raised his brows at hearing this name, as if astonished. Wei Wuxian knew why. Before Jin Guangyao was acknowledged by the Jin clan, he used his mother's surname, going by the name of Meng Yao. This was no secret. Indeed, that name had once been just as famous. Although not many personally witnessed Jin Guangyao's first time ascending the Golden Carp Tower, the same tower he would one day climb to the very peak of as the all-powerful Lan Wangji. The rumors around the event were extremely detailed. Jin Guangyao's mother was a famous courtesan in Yangmeng, renowned for her talent and the fine arts. It was said she was skilled at the Guqin and in calligraphy, and she was well educated with a good head on her shoulders. Though not from a renowned family, she still far surpassed the ladies of said families. Even so, in the mouths of others, a prostitute was still a prostitute. Jin Guangyao occasionally passed through young Meng, and naturally he couldn't miss the famous prostitute who was the talk of the town back then. After several days spent dallying with her, he gave her a love token and departed, sated and content. Of course, once he made it back home, he forgot all about the woman with whom he had rolled about, just as he had countless times before. Am I right, guys? Oh, we're back to dry heaving. Mo Xuanyu and his mother could be considered favored by comparison. At least Jin Guangyao had remembered at some point that he'd sired a son and summoned him to Golden Carp Tower. Meng Yao was not so lucky. The son of a prostitute could hardly be compared to the descendant of a decent family, and so Lady Meng bore Jin Guangyao a son all by her lonesome. Like second Lady Mo, she waited and waited, yearning and hoping for this head of the cultivators to return and take her and their child away. She devoted her heart and soul to preparing Meng Yao for his future in a cultivation sect. Another key sentence about Meng Yao. That is absolutely key to his entire existence and everything he does. But even as the boy became a youth, there was still no news from that father of his. Lady Meng, however, fell critically ill. Before she breathed her last, she gave her son the love token Jin Guangyao left her, telling him to head for Golden Carp Tower and seek a way out of this life. Thus, Meng Yao packed his things and set off from young Meng. He trekked across mountains and rivers before finally arriving at Lan Ling, approaching the foot of Golden Carp Tower. He was stopped at the entrance, so he took out the love token and asked them to notify Jin Guangyao of his arrival. The love token Jin Guangyao had left was a pearl button, which was nothing special to the Jinglan of Lan Ling. They were so abundant, in fact, that you could fling out a hand at random and come away with a fistful. Their most common use was to be given as gifts to the beautiful women Jin Guangyao dallied with when away from home. He would pass these pretty little baubles off as rare treasures and top them off with a pledge of undying and eternal love. He gave them out as he pleased and forgot all about them after the fact. The timing of Meng Yao's arrival was truly unfortunate. It happened to be Jin Zishuan's, that's not the right way you say that, birthday, and Jin Guangyao and Madame Jin were hosting a banquet to celebrate their precious son, with many family members present. 6 hours later, when evening came, they set out together to release lanterns with their prayers for blessings. That was when the servant saw an opening to step forward and inform them. When Madame Jin saw the pearl button, she recalled all of Jin Guangxian's past indiscretions. Her face immediately darkened. Jin Guangxian hurriedly crushed the pearl to dust and rebuked the servant loudly, instructing him to chase off the person so they wouldn't bump into him when they stepped out to release the lanterns. And thus, Meng Yao was kicked off Golden Carp Tower, rolling from the topmost stair to the bottommost one. As the story went, he said nothing after he climbed to his feet. He simply wiped the blood from his forehead, patted the dust from his body, and left with his bag on his back. After the Sunshot campaign began, Meng Yao joined a sect under the banner of the Nie clan of Qingye. Hang on, before we continue. So, this could very well be me. I may have just, missed this. But aside from, Meng Yao being rejected by his dad and therefore kicked off of, Carp Tower. It's like, I got, that, but everything else was either, I guess, implied or never really established, that kind of thing. It wasn't specified so much. Now, granted, this is a big show with, a lot of details. And I've seen it twice. So, very good odds, especially with my brain being the way it is, that it's there, I'm just forgetting it. But yeah, no. Wang Chen's bunny. Yeah. The stairs of Court Tower are indeed iconic. I named my Untamed side blog that for very different reasons, and hadn't remembered those stairs at all in this context when I did that. But there is indeed a double meaning there that I didn't necessarily intend, but is nonetheless there. The Nie clan cultivators under Nie Mingjue's command, as well as the recruited rogue cultivators, were stationed across several locations, one of which was located in a nameless mountain range in Hejian. That's wrong. I'm so sorry. I'm a filthy American. Nie Mingjue hiked up the mountain on foot, but before he could get close to camp, he saw a youth in cloth robes leaving the emerald forest, a bamboo tube in hand. The youth seemed to have just returned from retrieving water. Moving with slightly tired steps, he was just about to enter the cave when he suddenly stopped outside and listened intently for a while. He seemed to be debating whether to go in or not. Eventually, he silently walked off in another direction, bamboo tube and all. After walking for a distance, he found a spot at the side of the road and squatted down. He fished out a small piece of dry, white rations from the fold of his robes and slowly ate it with plain water. Nie Mingjue walked over to him. The youth had his head down as he ate his food, but found that a tall shadow had suddenly enveloped him. He looked up and hastily tucked his rations away, then stood to greet him. Sect Leader Nie. This youth's stature was comparatively small. He was fair-faced with delicate brows, the very same gainfully lovable face of Jin Guangyao. He had yet to be accepted by Golden Carp Tower at this time, so he naturally lacked the cinnabar mark on his forehead. Nie Mingjue obviously had some recollection of this face as he asked, "Meng Yao?" "I am," Meng Yao answered respectfully. "Why aren't you resting inside the cave with the others?" Nie Mingjue asked. Meng Yao opened his mouth, but could only manage a slightly awkward smile, as if he did not know what to say. At the sight of this, Nie Mingjue walked past him and headed over to the cave. Meng Yao looked like he wanted to stop him, but did not dare. Nie Mingjue concealed the sound of his approach, so no one noticed, even when he was right outside the cave. The people inside were still having a merry time, chatting and gossiping. Right, that's him. No way, Jin Guangshan's son? How could Jin Guangshan's son slum it with the likes of us? Why doesn't he go back and find his father? All it'd take is one word from his father and he wouldn't have to work like a dog. You think he doesn't want to? Didn't he travel to Lan Ling with that little token all the way from Yanmeng, all just to try to get his father to take him in? Bad decision. Jin Guangshan's woman is a formidable one. Not to rub salt in the wound, but Jin Guangchang has sired so many children. He has at least a dozen bastard sons and daughters out there, but have you ever seen him acknowledge a single one? He's just disgracing himself, making a scene like that. See, this is why people shouldn't dream about what's out of their league. Who can he blame but himself for getting tumbled bloody? No one. He asked for it. What a fool. Why would Jin Guangshan give a damn about other sons when he has Jin... Jishuan? I think. What's more, his mother was a whore who was bedded by thousands of men. Hell knows whose bastard he really is. The way I see it, Jin Guangshan probably didn't dare acknowledge him because he had doubts of his own. Nah. Please, I don't think he even remembers having an encounter with the woman. Now that I think about it, I actually like the idea of Jin Guangshan's son resigning himself to his fate and fetching water for us. Okay. It blipped for a second, my bad. The stream. Resigning my ass. He's doing his best to perform. Don't you see how hard he's working, running around all day doing this and that? He's so eager to please, hoping so hard to make a name for himself, so his father will be willing to acknowledge him and take him back. Fury blazed in Nie Mingjue's chest, so searing that it burned its way into Wei Wuxian's own. His hand pushed down on the hilt of his saber. Meng Yao hurriedly reached out to stop him, but didn't succeed. The saber was already drawn. A rock before the cave dropped to the ground with a thunderous crash. Dozens of cultivators who were sitting inside the cave taking a break were so startled by its collapse that they sprang up and drew their swords in unison. The bamboo drinking tubes they were holding in their hands fell to the ground in a clattering chorus. Without delay, Nie Mingjue bellowed, "Drinking water that others fetched for you while spewing such malicious words. Did you all pledge yourselves to my command to gossip instead of slaying those Wen dogs?" A flurry of commotion broke out inside the cave. Everyone knew Qifeng Jun's temperament. The more they tried to explain, the more furious he would get. None of them were likely to escape punishment today. All they could do was admit fault without putting up a resistance, and so no one dared speak. Nie Mingjue sneered but didn't enter the cave. He said to Meng Yao, "Come with me." He turned around and walked down the mountain. Sure enough, Meng Yao followed. Both of them walked for a distance, but Meng Yao's head hung lower and lower as they went, and his steps grew increasingly heavy. It was a long time before he managed to speak. "Thank you, sect leader Nie." Nie Mingjue said, "A man stands upright and moves with principle. There's no need for you to take that idle gossip to heart." Meng Yao nodded and answered, "Yes, sir." Though he said that, his face still showed a hint of worry. Nie Mingjue standing up for him today would keep the cultivators in check for a while, but the men would definitely take their frustrations out on him 100-fold in the future. How could he not worry? Nie Mingjue, however, said, "The more those fools talk behind your back, the more you have to prove yourself and render them speechless. I've seen you in battle before. Every time you were at the fore, and every time you stayed until the end to guide and settle the common people. You've done well. Keep it up." Meng Yao froze on hearing this praise from him. He lifted his head slightly. Nie Mingjue continued, "Your swordplay is very agile, but not decisive enough. You still need practice. Although, hang on, in terms of foundational Meng Yao things, it cannot be overstated the importance of the more those fools talk behind your back, the more you have to prove yourself and render them speechless." I am appreciating how, and to a degree, we get this in the show as well, how we really, really get the foundation and how all these things come together to form the Meng Yao that is formed. Yeah. This was already an explicit encouragement. Meng Yao hurriedly said, "Thank you, Sect Leader Nie, for your guidance." But Wei Wuxian understood that no amount of practice would help. Jin Guangyao wasn't like the other clan juniors. His cultivation foundation was too poor for him to scale new heights. He could only seek breadth of knowledge in his cultivation, not depth or proficiency. This was also why he sought to consolidate the strengths of various clans and to learn the unique skills of each, leading him to once be denounced as a thief of skills. Jesus Christ, not a jack of all trades. No, a thief of skills. I mean, Meng Yao's behavior in its entirety is by no means excusable, but boy, does MXTX make you understand how someone like him comes to be. Hejin was a key stronghold of the Sunshot campaign. It was also Nie Mingjue's main battleground, an iron bastion that straddled the western side of the Wen clan's territory at Xichen, leaving them no choice but to invade east and march south. The Nie clan of Qinghe and the Wen clan of Xichen had old grudges to begin with, which they had previously managed to hold back. But when the war broke out, both sides burst into action, waging dozens of battles of varying scale to the bitter end, taking heavy casualties each time. The commoners in Hejin suffered as a result, and while the unscrupulous Wen clan of Xichen would stop at nothing to win, the Nie clan of Qinghe could not do the same. Yeah, that's the whole crux. That's the whole crux of good versus evil. Evil can do whatever the fuck it wants, and good is beholden by certain rules and regulations. But there are some, rules and regulations that we can forsake if it means taking down evil. We just won't do that. I could go off on a whole ass tangent right now, but not gonna. Under these circumstances, Meng Yao, who always went out of his way to clear the battlefield and guide and reassure commoners, began to gain more and more attention from Nie Mingjue. After a few such engagements, Nie Mingjue directly promoted him to be at his side as a deputy envoy. Meng Yao seized this opportunity, reliably executing the tasks he was given every time. Thus, the Jin Guangyao of this period was not harshly lectured by Nie Mingjue, but rather appreciated and well regarded. Wei Wuxian had heard so many jokes along the lines of Lan Wangji fled every time he heard Qi Fengjun approach that he found it surreal to see Meng Yao getting along so easily and harmoniously with Nie Mingjue. On this day, the Hejian battleground welcomed a guest. During the Sunshot campaign, tales of the heroic deeds of the Three Jun were told across the land. Qi Fengjun, Nie Mingjue, was the invincible one who swept clean all the lands as he passed, destroying all when dogs in his path. Zewujun, Lan Xichen, was different. Lan Xichen was able to defend Gusu once the situation there stabilized, so Lan Xichen often ventured forth to offer assistance and deliver the people from despair and misery, as well as recover lost territory. During the Sunshot campaign, he snatched countless lives from the jaws of death on an innumerable number of occasions. As such, people rejoiced at the sound of his name, as if his very existence was a glimmer of hope, a guarantee of their survival. Don't think I missed the ship name. I know, I clocked it. 3 June. I was like, oh, that's where it comes from. Yeah, no. I got it. Every time Lan Xichen escorted cultivators from other clans through Hejian, he would stop to rest, using it as a sort of transit station. This time was no different. Nie Mingjue personally led him into a bright and spacious hall with several other cultivators already sitting at its head. Although Lan Xichen's appearance was almost identical to Lan Wangji's, Wei Wuxian could distinguish one from the other with a single glance. But when he saw his face, his heart couldn't help but skip a beat. I wonder how my body's holding up, he thought. With this paper one being assaulted by resentment, will something go awry with my physical body? Will Lan Zhan notice that something's amiss? We are at the top of 280. After a few pleasantries, Meng Yao, who had been standing at attention behind Nie Mingjue, came out to serve tea to each of the guests. On the battlefield, one person... Totally just hit the mic. On the battlefield, one person did the work of 6. There was simply no room for dedicated errand runners or maidservants. And so, Jin Guangyao, the deputy envoy, took the initiative to undertake all such daily sundries. The cultivators were taken aback when they got a clear look at his face, each reacting with different expressions. Jin Guangshan's amorous anecdotes had always been a hot topic of conversation, and since Meng Yao had been a famous laughingstock for a while, a few of them recognized him. Probably thinking the son of a prostitute was perhaps unclean as well, these cultivators did not drink the tea he served them with both hands. They accepted the teacups but then set them aside, looking ill, and took out snow-white handkerchiefs to repeatedly scrub the fingers that had just touched the cups. Nie Mingjue was not a mindful person by nature and did not notice. Wei Wuxian, on the other hand, caught a glimpse out of the corner of his eyes. Meng Yao continued to serve the tea, his smile unflagging, as if he hadn't seen it. When Lan Xichen accepted the tea, he looked up at him and smiled. "Thank you." He promptly lowered his head to take a sip, then continued his discussion with Nie Mingjue after having done so. The other cultivators felt somewhat uncomfortable at the sight of this. Nie Mingjue was a serious man, a few words, but even his expression would soften when he was in Lan Xichen's presence. My husband has that effect on people, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand how you could possibly be in the presence of that man and not just, just a little soft, a little, I might be projecting a little bit onto that one, but I don't think I am. I'll stay the night at Mingjue Xiang's. pay, place, and set off tomorrow to meet up with Wangji, Lan Xichen replied. Where are you heading? Nie Mingjue asked. Jin Ling, Lan Xichen answered. Nie Mingjue frowned. Isn't Jin Ling still in the hands of the Wen dogs? Not since 2 days ago, Lan Xichen replied. It is now held by the Jiang clan of Young Meng. One of the clan heads spoke up. Sect leader Nie may not be aware of this, but sect leader Jiang of Young Meng's influence in the area is quite impressive now. And why wouldn't it be? Another person said. Wei Wuxian can take on an army of 1,000,000 all by himself. What does he have to fear? He doesn't need to kill himself running around the way we do. He's in total control of that area. What luck! Someone else, sensing his tone wasn't quite right, hurriedly added, Thank goodness for Zewujun. Ooh, that's not Zewujun. And Han Wenjun's assistants everywhere. If not for them, who knows how many prominent clans and innocent commoners would meet their end at the hands of the Wen dogs. Your younger brother is there? Nie Mingjue asked. Lan Xichen nodded. He escorted some men there earlier this month. Your younger brother's cultivation level is high, Nie Mingjue commented. He alone is enough, so why are you still going? For some reason, Wei Wuxian was happy to hear him praise Lan Wangji. You've got a good eye there, Qi Fengjun. For some reason, for some unknowable reason, for some completely indiscernible, mysterious, unnamed, impossible to identify reason. Jesus. It's embarrassing to speak of, Lan Xichen said with a sigh. But after Wangji arrived, it seems he had an unpleasant encounter with Wei Guangji from the Jiang clan of Young Meng. I think I'd better go take a look. Nie Mingjue asked, What happened? It seems it was because Wei Wuxian's methods were too dark and grotesque, someone said. They got into an argument. Apparently Lan Wangji severely rebuked Wei Wuxian. Something about him demeaning corpses, being cruel and bloodthirsty, losing sight of his nature and whatnot. But rumors at the Battle of Jiangling are spreading, making Wei Wuxian out to be a legend. I'll have to take a look for myself, should the chance arise. What this man recounted was actually one of the better versions of the story. The exaggerated versions had him and Lan Wangji fighting each other at the same time they were killing Wen dogs on the battlefield. But in truth, their relationship at the time wasn't as irreconcilable or antagonistic as the rumors made them out to be. Still, they did have some minor, unhappy disagreements. At the time, Wei Wuxian had been out digging up graves every day. Lan Wangji never had anything good to say about this, and even actively tried to stop him. Something, harming the body and mind is not the right path, and so forth. Since they were clashing with the Wen dogs every few days, either by staging ambushes or meeting them head-on, tempers ran hot all the time, and they often parted on bad terms. It all felt like a lifetime ago as Wei Wuxian listened to the others discuss this. Not as if, he suddenly remembered. It really was a lifetime ago. Ow. If you ask me, there's no need for Han Wenjun to fuss so much, someone else said. The living are already on the verge of death. Who cares about the bodies of the dead? Yeah, these are desperate times, another chimed in. Sect leader Jiang is right. Who can beat the Wen dogs when it comes to evil? In any case, he's on our side. It's all good as long as it's the Wen dogs he's killing. That's not what you people said later when you all joined forces to kill me, Wei Wuxian thought. Goddamn right. Not long later, Lan Xichen rose with his men and let Meng Yao lead them to the rest area while Nie Mingjue returned to his own room. He retrieved a long, slender saber and took it with him to find Lan Xichen. But before he got close, he heard the two talking inside the rest area. Lan Xichen said, Such a coincidence to think you joined Mingjue Xiang's command and became his deputy envoy. It's all thanks to Qi Fengjun's appreciation and decision to promote me, Meng Yao said. Mingjue Xiang has a personality that blazes like fire, Lan Xichen said with a smile. It cannot have been easy for you to earn his appreciation and have him promote you. After a moment's pause, he continued, Recently, sect leader Jin of Lan Ling has been having a difficult time holding the line at Langyi. They are currently recruiting talent from all over. Meng Yao was slightly taken aback. Ooh, it should be Zheojun, right? Closer? Because the Z is not a Z in this language. You mean Lan Xichen said, "No need to sound so cautious. I remember you telling me how you hoped to earn a place at the Jin clan of Lan Ling and win your father's approval. Now that you have established yourself under Ming Xiang's command and had the opportunity to put your talents to good use here, does your old wish still hold true?" Meng Yao seemed to hold his breath. Yeah, his brows knitting. After a long silence, he answered, "Yes." "I imagined so," Lan Xichen said. "But I'm already the deputy envoy for sect leader Nie," Meng Yao protested. "I owe him a debt of gratitude for his recognition and appreciation. Whether or not I still wish for it, I can't leave Hejian." Lan Xichen pondered this for a moment. "Indeed. Even if you desire to leave, it might be difficult to broach the subject. But I trust that if you ask, Ming Xiang will respect your wishes. In the event he refuses to let you go, I can help persuade him a little." Nie Mingjue suddenly spoke up. "Why would I refuse?" He pushed the door open and entered the room. Lan Xichen and Meng Yao, who sat facing each other with solemn expressions, were surprised by his sudden entry. Meng Yao jolted to his feet, but before he could say a word, Nie Mingjue gave an order. "Sit." Meng Yao did not move. Nie Mingjue continued, "I'll write you a letter of recommendation tomorrow." "Sect leader Nie?" Meng Yao said tentatively. Nie Mingjue stated, "You can take this letter to Lang Yi and look for your father." Meng Yao hurriedly said, "Sect leader Nie, if you heard all of that, then you should have also heard me say, I did not promote you because I wanted you to repay my kindness," Nie Mingjue interrupted. "I merely think you are capable and that your character is very much to my liking, which is why you deserve this position. If you genuinely wish to repay me, kill more of the Wen dogs of the battlefields." Wow, Meng Yao really out here saying, "I'm gonna destroy everything I love." With one exception. Well, actually, no. No, that's not even an exception, really. Let's be honest. These words stumped the ever-eloquent Meng Yao. Lan Xichen smiled. "You see, I told you Ming Zhushang will respect your choice." Meng Yao's eyes reddened. Sect leader Nie, Zhewijun, he bowed his head. "I really don't know what to say." Ning Mingju sat down. "Then don't say a word." He set the saber in his hand on the table. Seeing this, Lan Xichen smiled. "Huaisang's saber? Although he is safe at your home, he mustn't neglect his studies," Nie Mingjue said. "Have someone supervise him when they're free. The next time we meet, I want to evaluate his saber techniques and understanding of cultivation scripture." Lan Xichen tucked the saber away in his Changqun sleeve. Huaisang was initially pleased to be excused from training, saying he left his saber at home. Now he has no more reason to slack off. "Come to think of it, have the two of you met before?" Nie Mingjue wondered. "Yes, I've met Jiewijun before." "Where? When?" Nie Mingjue probed. Lan Xichen shook his head with a smile. "Let's not bring it up. It's the greatest disgrace of my life, so please don't probe further, Mingjue Shang." "Why would you worry about losing face in front of me?" Nie Mingjue said. "Meng Yao, you tell me." But Meng Yao said, "Since Jiewijun is unwilling to say, I cannot reveal it." The three chatted, talking business one moment and making idle conversation the next, their manner more relaxed and casual than it had been in the hall earlier. Wei Wuxian kept wanting to butt in as he listened, but he couldn't, so he let his thoughts wander. Their relationship isn't bad at all right now. Why is Lanjan so bad at making conversation when Jiewijun is this chatty? Well, it's okay. It's fine if he keeps his mouth shut. Since I already talk enough for the two of us, he can just listen and acknowledge me with his mms. That's nice too. What do you call that again? I call that he lets his mind wander and it goes straight to fucking Wangji. That's what that is. Let's be honest. It is past 5. Holy shit. A few days later, Meng Yao left Hejian for Lang Yi with the letter of recommendation from Nie Mingjue. I believe that's a good place to stop. Yeah. At the bottom of 285. Bookmark. So that is where we are stopping for today because holy crap, it's 5:05. I didn't notice. The wife is getting some stuff done to our car today. So it's no wonder that she's late, quote unquote. You know, she usually gets home at about 4:45 our time. But since we were able to go for a while longer today, um let's go ahead and say for Thursday, let's make it 2:30 instead of 3 p.m. for Thursday. Let's get in an extra half an hour and see if we can finish. We're gonna try. And I think we're gonna come close. I think an extra half an hour would do it. Because we already came plenty far today. And we had about an extra 20 minutes? Something like that. So it should be part of it. Part of it? No. We should be able to finish it? Wow. I've been reading and talking for the better part of 2 hours. I might be loopy. So, damn. I figured that there was probably more stuff about more scenes with the three of them than there was in the show, because 3 June is one of the popular ships in the fandom. And just going off of the show, that didn't entirely make much sense. But then at the same time, I didn't think much of it, because over in the BBC Sherlock fandom, there was very much a thriving little community of, oh my god, one of my good friends was a big fan of it for a long time. It obviously wasn't John Locke. It was, this shows how long it's been since I've watched anything involving Sherlock Holmes. Anyway, there was a pairing in the BBC Sherlock fandom between two characters who had never actually met in the series, but there was a thriving little community for them. I mean, big. So I do not put it past fangirls to just randomly associate two characters and then just run. But at the same time, I was like, there's still probably more content of them in the book than there is in the show. No, it wasn't Moriarty and Sherlock. It didn't involve Sherlock at all. It's gonna bug me because I can see them so clearly. Hello. Thank you, Mycroft and Greg. Yeah. Mystrad. Yeah, Mystrad. Yeah. Mycroft and Lestrade. It's a ship that just chugs right along. And I think maybe they said 2 words to each other eventually in season 3 at some point. But it totally didn't matter. I mean, it was a thriving little fandom, not going on very much. And that's one of the beautiful things about fandom and transformative works in general, is that you don't need to have a reason or a good reason or canon support or anything like that. You can just make it the way you want to make it. And boy, don't they. See, we got a Mystrad person right in here too. There. It's so great. But anyway, that's it for the live stream today. It was a long one. And we'll start at 2:30 on Thursday and see if we can get volume 2 done this week. That would be cool. That would be awesome. So Tuesday, 2:30. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a good time. We wound up learning a lot about Meng Yao. today a lot. Almost. Well, no, we haven't learned too much about him yet. That comes later. But we will. So, until Thursday, please remember to take care of yourself. And I will see you then, as the wife texts me. Bye, guys.